to get right into this great interview with none other than Dr. Professor Silvester Henderson. Gonna get him on the line right quick.
Lord, do you even hear me? Are you even really there? Lord, do you even feel me? Do you even really care? Tell me what I'm doing wrong, because another day has gone by, and I still haven't heard from you, and I don't understand why. I just wanna hear a word from you. I just wanna hear a word from you. I just wanna hear a word from you. I just wanna hear a word from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was none other than Evangel right here on GODradio1.com. Professor, we see that you are on the line. We have been fighting with Zoom
My Lord.
all morning long. They have even said that all the news stations cannot get on Facebook and online today. So we are on audio on Facebook, so people can definitely hear you because we wanted to make sure that you would be able to be heard and they'll be able to hear this great information. But at the same point, we can hear you and we can see you live and you can see us live. So Robert O'Dean, if you want to introduce him, and we're going to go from there.
This man is, he's an educator, he's music. He gives you everything you need for the industry of music. He's a professor, which means he has an education behind it. He is a faithful musician of 40 years to one church. You know, today musicians can't stay at one church for 6 months. And so we're glad to have him in his and all of his knowledge, the one and only Professor Silvester Henderson from the Bay Area, the one and only. Welcome to the LT Wake Up Morning Show with Robert Earl Dean Report.
Wow, good morning, and thank you for allowing me to come on your radio show and just to talk.
Yes.
It was a real joy, a real treat, and a surprise, so I'm very appreciative. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, man, I've had the opportunity to work with you with Eddie Bowtrip and Fulfillment because you're known for bringing so many recording artists to the Berkeleys and to your other school, which I think Los Madonnas.
Los Madonnas College.
Yes. Tell us about some of the artists that you've worked with.
Oh God! I worked with the late Reverend Darrell Coley,
Yes.
The late Walter Hawkins, the Voices of Fulfillment, Helen Stevens,
Yes.
Billy Porter, Melanie Daniels, Kirk Whalum. Who else did we have? God, we've had so many. We had recently. Gerald Albright. We had recently Kyla Jade, Keisha Renee.
Oh yeah, Keisha.
Howard Hewitt, Vesta. Oh God, I got to look at the resume, man. I've been doing it so long.
Yes. So
I mean, probably every well-known artist. I bring a lot of well-known celebrities, gospel and R&B artists to the college, as a way of allowing the students to interface with professionals.
Yes, sir.
But one of the goals of all the festivals that I've had an opportunity to sponsor, I sponsored at UC Berkeley a festival called the Gospel Experience.
Yes.
And the Gospel Experience I held for 20 years at the University of California, Berkeley. That's where really kind of my career started at the age of 25, and I'm going to be 60 this year.
No, sir.
And yes, sir. I'll be 60 this year. I'm like, man, when did that happen?
Exactly. Because you be so busy doing good stuff, man.
Yeah, I keep myself real busy. And so at UC Berkeley is kind of where everything kind of started. And Then I worked there 20 years, and I landed a full-time tenure track position at the age of 34 at Los Vedanos College, and I created a similar concert sequel entitled The Gospel Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of created, at UC Berkeley, it was more an audition ensemble that I ran, and actually having worked now as a tenure professor. When I worked at UC Berkeley, I worked as a lecturer. I was part of their, I was known as a professor of practice, a teaching scholar.
Wow.
At when I was college, I landed a full-time tenure job, which means I have all the benefits of an American professor.
Wow.
And so I've been there 28 years.
Ooh.
And I created, I have a well-known urban music program, my gospel choir, as well as I have a very large and well-known classical program as well. It's called the Los Vedanos College Chamber Chorale. And then in addition to that, I sort of bring everything together through my music ministry at my church I've been at close to 40 years.
Wow.
The Promise Baptist Church. And what I normally do is that all the musicians that are trained through the colleges become my staff at the church.
Wow.
And so I give them what is called career technical education. And so I have many sons and daughters all over the country. As I've become an older man, I've had a philosophy all my life.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of following the crowd, and I've never been one to follow crowds. I just really believe in one building their own creative nation.
Uh-huh.
So I have especially the last 10 years, I have really started seeing the result of all of the massive work that I've done through not only just being honored as a professional, but watching so many of my students now lead the nation.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of the major musicians all around the world,
yes,
all come from my nation
from
and
you.
my family.
Yes. And why is that?
The majority.
And why is that? Because you're known for holding the bar high. And what I like about you, what I love about you with my cousin John DeCure, is that you didn't let these church musicians just come in and just get down and just play and play and play. You made them learn their craft from the educational side.
That's right.
And you made them serve by being auditioning for the choir. That's not normal.
Right. I make musicians learn to sing.
Yes.
I make them learn to read music.
Important.
And I encourage, the central thing that I've had my entire life is to obtain an education. I really look at it quite differently. I don't fit necessarily well in your traditional gospel environment,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not a groupie, and I don't subscribe to the weekly musicals and
Right.
the burning young people out. Because to me, at the end of the day, that's senseless. It's useless.
Yes.
At the end of the day, I believe that God has a greater plan for his people. And that plan is for us to be able to take your craft and actually do something with it. I see so many well-known artists that spend their whole life serving and performing, and then when they become 60 or 70, they have to take an offering to bury them. And I just think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
And it's not because I don't love the people or think they're not talented, but to me, one of the greatest skills you can give is not just giving the man the fish, but giving him the tools to help him to learn how to fish, and so he can take care of himself. And to me, that's what higher education does, and a real skill. Many of my students are college graduates with master's and doctorate degrees, such as Jonathan DeCure. Some of them come in and complete associate degrees and develop certificate programs like Mike Blankenship. Some of them are in the process of completing their degree, like another young man that I'm very close to. He's like really dear to my heart, Mr. Richard Hayes. Mm-hmm. A lot of them serve all around. David Jackson, who's the keyboardist for Jennifer Hudson, he came in and took a bunch of courses for about a year at the college. I can look at one of my, what I call my musical sons, David Chong. just completed his PhD from CSU LA, and many of them take different paths. Some of them are interested in becoming educators. Some of them, I tell them, I need you to complete your education so that you may decide one day that the performing life is not what you want and you want a more stable job. I've always liked the fact of stability. So I have never liked the fact of just ripping and running around the country. I like the fact of having a real stable job and being consistent and being persistent. But that's not the gospel. That's not the gospel way.
Right.
And I see a lot of young artists, and I'm the sort of person that people love or hate. Usually I create my own nation because generally sometimes people think I'm very, very hard, but really in my heart, I love them, so I don't want to lie to them.
Right.
And so whenever I meet a young artist or a young person, I'm always going to talk about higher education. Sometimes they want me to just concentrate on, wow, I have a great voice. But a lot of people have a great voice. That doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or I play well. A lot of people play well. That doesn't mean anything.
Professor.
At the end of the day, that becomes a problem.
Professor, I want to interject right here because I got like 1,500 questions, but I wanted to first start off.
A big deal about their talent. I constantly remind them that your talent is important,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more concerned about your future, because what would your life be without your talent? And so the first thing I do is that I talk to them, I partner, and I create sort of a quasi-educational plan. And I try to find out a lot more about their family to kind of figure out what are some of the traditions and goals in their family. And then I try to find a way the second semester we're full throttle into an educational full program. That's the method that I've used everywhere I've gone.
Okay, and so that is the method. So a young person comes to you, and you have I guess a persona, a aura about yourself that may be intimidating to some and endeared by others. How do people connect with you? Because everybody, and I have to say this, every musician wants a mentor, but I don't believe you mentor every musician. You might teach, but how do you get those young people that become your mentor, that become like the children of the Professor Henderson?
That's a good question. Usually it's after about 6 months that I'm usually very firm on them. And then I try to find a way to sneak in something really nice here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really firm about I keep my distance from students. But what I will do is that if I'm really proud of a student, I'm really very smart in terms of the fact that I will say, for instance, something such as, you know what, John, I am so proud of you, John. I will actually take a magical moment, and in a classroom, I'll make John feel like he's the greatest thing next to apple pie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell all the students, go over there and hug John for me. That is the way. And then I'll talk to John generally in the class and let them know in front of everybody, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you that you're doing something different. It can be something very, very small, like learning to sing an Italian art song or learning to play a 5-finger melody pattern on the piano that you read music. But I make a big deal, and I sort of especially make a large focus on the African American male students, because generally a lot of times they don't like formality. And I really encourage and I mandate formality. Mm-hmm. And I can really say, I don't think there's too many students. They always start off with the same persona. They say, this man is crazy. He wants you to do what he wants to do. And that's true. Mm-hmm. And all that's true. But usually after 6 months to a year, the students begin to really start to adopt and understand that my love message is my care for their future. Mm-hmm. And so generally that is how the relationship began to develop as a mentor relationship, as it did for Jonathan DeCure. Mm-hmm. When I first met Jonathan DeCure, I remember in particular, Jonathan had come from a Church of God in Christ Pentecostal background, mm-hmm. was a wonderful musician. Mm-hmm. And he sat down and prayed for me. And I basically said to him, I mean, this don't mean anything to me. I mean, that's good, but can you sing and can you read music? And originally, that was hard for Jonathan because everybody had made a big deal about Jonathan, but I kept telling him, I never forget when we first met, he had to do an audition, and I kept saying, well, Jonathan, Mr. DeCure, I'm very formal. If I just support what you already know, that means you're not learning anything. I need you to learn because I want you to be able to sit in my seat
Yes.
30 or 20 years down the line. And lo and behold, Jonathan produced an event last December that brought tears to me.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, wow, I'm living my life through him. I was so proud of him.
Yes.
He is such an amazing professional. He is not only an educated man, he is a pastor, he's creative, he got a solid income, he's a business person. And I gave him this idea of you don't have to become successful as the two of you, Dr. LT and Mr. Dean. You don't have to run all over the world to become successful. You create your success right in your community.
Yes.
You don't want to burn yourself at the end of the day. You don't have nothing to live for. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things you share about Pastor the Cure. Now we have a lot of young people that are online. A lot of young artists and professionals. There are a couple of things that you had shared with Robert and I, and you talked about setting up retirement plans or retirement funds so that as musicians and professionals that you have something after the days of producing or performing. Let's talk about setting up the financial plans for young musicians now and for future.
Well, Jonathan, as well as I would say these three in particular, especially Jonathan and Michael Blankenship. Michael Blankenship is the lead musician for Michael Franti. And he also played for Lauryn Hill a lot, and they played around a lot. These are two real famous musicians. One of the things I talk to them about is a company because I started it myself. I've been playing for my church since 1981. I was 21 years old, and I'm going to be 60 this year. And about 20 years ago, it just dawned on me. And I sort of evolved into more knowledge and more information. It dawned on me, well, what am I going to do after I end up burning myself out and every Sunday playing for this big church music program? And at one point, we had over 350 participants in the choir.
Wow.
We were one of the largest Black Baptist churches in terms of a music program in the United States. We had a mega music program. And so that was another huge responsibility that I had. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute. Half of these people may be gone and dead when I get 60 years old. And we could change pastors. We could change whatever. But that shouldn't have anything to do with the time I've served. So what is the church going to give me? They're going to say, oh, Brother Henderson is old now. He retired, so we're just going to give him some cake and punch and a big old plaque. I got a whole room full of plaques. So I decided that I wanted a retirement source.
Hold on. Make sure that you also add in there the going away musical where they take up an offering. That's the big thing, the going away musical.
Because sometimes what happens is just that, and then people want to run around, and then people get upset and only want to give you $5, and you've served 40 years, and you say, well, man, this is crazy.
Right.
I've been playing for this church and burning myself out, and I mean having stress and ulcers and no sleep and everything, and at the end of the day, you may be lucky to get $500, maybe $1,000.
Right.
But then you're old and you can't move. So I decided, in addition, that because I looked at my church employment as a job. So just as in my job at Lawson Honors College, I'm part of California State retirement system, Cal Stirs. I went to a company called Guidestone. I think it's Guidestone or Guidance. It's one of the companies that actually handles retirements for people who work for Baptist churches. Primarily, and it's not just Baptist churches, but I think they were based around working primarily with large Southern Baptist churches. And originally, when I went to the church, I said this: I said, "You don't have to match anything in this. I just ask that you take a certain amount of money every month and send it to this company." And
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I started. And so basically, what happens once a month, twice a month, I get paid twice a month from the church. A certain amount of my income is taken out and it goes right into this annuity. And in addition to that, I've been at the church long enough now where I will actually obtain a Social Security check. I mean, that's very rare, but
Right.
I'll obtain probably the highest amount that Social Security can play almost
Wow.
because I've been there so long. Because very few people will have stayed in the church, but I look at the church as an employer and as a real source of ministry, but it's also a job.
Yes, sir.
And so to me, it doesn't make sense to run from one church to the next. I figure, look, going from one church to the next ain't doing nothing but having another headache. I'm going to stay at this church. I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to stay true to my task. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to produce good ministry support for the church. I'm going to create a powerful music program. I'm going to change the culture of the church to understand that this is an employment. This is just not, because you don't have to serve the Lord just by playing the piano
Mm-hmm.
or singing or doing what.
Right.
And so
Well,
the church, my church now really looks at our music program as a real employment.
well,
And so the same benefits you would receive from working for PG&E, you receive from working for the Promise Baptist Church.
Well, one of the things I just
Wow.
did is I actually put up the website for guidestone.org that the what you're talking about for those people that are looking to get more information about that. We did put that up in the Facebook feed. I also want to say to you, Doctor, you know, I'm a very and this is I'm playing a role here. Ready? I'm one of the hottest musicians you will ever meet in life. I'm 23 years old, and I am coming to your church to get a job. Uh, but I got some demands. You know, I need to make so much money per week, and I also want my music. I want you all to upgrade my instrument, and I need a plan for maintenance because I'm one of the baddest keyboard slash organist slash producer
Ever.
you'll ever meet. What do you tell that person that's coming to get a job with you?
You got to be in college. I only hire college students.
Oh, okay, okay. But if I'm in college,
If you want to play for the Promise Baptist Church, the first thing is that you have to have some form of training. You have to either be a college student, and the fact that you are a great musician, I'm going to honor that. But I'm going to tell you that I want to partner with that you being in school. All of our musicians are in some form of college, and we make a really big deal. And generally, what happened is we've had tons of musicians that were very famous and are great musicians. We make a big deal about the fact that you're in college because when you're in college, then we validate your talent.
Yes.
We don't just validate the fact that you're talented. We validate the fact that we want to see a total package because the church is really focused, the pastor as well as myself, Pastor Thomas Smith, as well as the whole congregation. They like to see young people up there playing who they can say, oh, they go to San Francisco State University. They're studying music, or they go to UC Berkeley, or they go to Los Alamos College. That's what excites the congregation. The congregation is just not excited about the fact that you are a hot musician because there's a whole lot of hot musicians, but when they get 60, see how hot they are when they broke.
so let me ask you this
That's
question.
what we tell you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question because one of the things, both Robert and I are from the Grand Old Church of God in Christ, praise the Lord. But one of the things that we have seen is in a lot of the bigger churches of God in Christ, your music department, although they are good musicians or good singers, they also have doctor's degrees, medical doctor's degrees, lawyer degrees, heavily involved. Do you have any musicians on your staff that are in school, but their degree is not actually in music, but it's in something else that is just as impressive to the congregation?
Um, One of our bass players has a bachelor's degree in mathematics.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Ron Belcher. Um, the majority of them, we have some that maybe complete an associate's degree in liberal arts and they transfer and they may focus. You know what? I'm glad you said that because one of one of our other musicians was completing his degree in business administration, but he's very, very creative.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's fine as well. You
Okay.
know, it's not that it has to be necessarily in music. We want you to be in the mindset of thinking about uh, yourself as an actual scholar, as an actual professional.
Mm-hmm.
And those are skills that the church don't necessarily promote. They should,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
but the main goal of the church is your soul and your salvation. But at the same token, there's another part of the church that many of our black churches sort of go away from, and that is humanity. And so people a lot of times they spend all their day in church. I'll always tell you, you know what? If you're young and you're supposed and they got a prayer meeting and you have a math final, well, you know what? You could pray on the way to complete that math final.
Yes, sir.
Because at the end of the day, you're thinking about the love that you want to share to the young person. You want the young person to be able to really take care of themselves when they get a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
And creativity is just not going to take care of you unless you really have an enormous talent.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you have an enormous talent, history has shown that artists historically don't take the time to really galvanize their business.
Mm-hmm.
So even some of the world, I always use as an example to young people all the time, Dr. LT and Robert. I say, you know what? Have you ever wondered why an artist would be my age and they have to perform every weekend and go somewhere? I'm not trying to be rude,
No, you're
but
being
sometimes
truthful.
that's an indicator that they broke and don't have no money.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's the truth. You know, and so they have to do this. So what happens when you're sick and somebody's paying you $1,000 for a gig and you're 60 or 65 years old and you got a rent or a mortgage to pay and you don't have no sort of security in your employment? I'm not being rude. I'm trying to say that this is how I show love.
Right.
I show love by really telling you the fact that I want you to have a life where you have security, and the choices that you're making right now are just not going to end up. I don't care how talented you are. I have young people that's on television, and all those things are great. But at the end of the day, unless those things, or unless you have really started some form of a financial plan
Mm-hmm.
early in life, when you get a certain age, you're just going to be another person on the shelf who had a lot of talent. And you know what? When you die, everybody ain't coming to your funeral.
So,
So let me ask you this, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Robert Earl Dean. Let's go finance 101. What are, because the music industry has changed tremendously.
mhm.
If you were to say to a young person right now, creating financial streams, what would be the recommended financial streams that you would encourage them to do? If it's producing, writing, things that will be bring residuals from here on out. You already did one thing, and that is to invest in yourself and start a retirement plan. What other things would you recommend with this changing industry?
To find some form of a business that complements what you're doing, such as try to use your resources to buy property and become a real estate owner, or to create a company, and a certain aspect of that company, you take a certain portion of those resources every single month and you hide them away and act like they don't exist. But all of this, Dr. LT, only works if you're willing to have longevity.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is this is just not about musicians, it's about people in general. A lot of times people want quick results,
Right.
but real wealth building is about having longevity
Right.
and about willing and having the willingness to be stubborn enough to start a process and see it through. You have to be willing even when it feels uncomfortable. If you're putting away $300 a month or $400 a month, if you start, there's an annuity calculator that I could send both of you that'll show if a person invests like $2,500 and get like 7% return, I think at the age of 20, it'll be over $1.5 million or $2 million by the time they get 60 years old. They don't have to do anything else.
Wow.
But they have to be willing, understand the stock market, really to look at yourself as a business. And so there's a variety of things. You could either start a business, if you're a publishing company, if you're a music artist, create a publishing company and begin to employ others. But a lot of that goes back to the fact you have to have knowledge and skills to learn how to do all of this. What a lot of people do is to create businesses with no knowledge. And then what happens is that they fail.
Mm-hmm.
And so the greatest business that you can have is to have knowledge and real skill to understand how to create and strategize your business. And so that's what I would say, to find some sort of interest that you have, that you can create a business to partner with your passion. Mine was real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I created a company called Mr. Gospel Properties.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes, praise the Lord. We're going to take a break right now, and I'm going to have an A and B selection come in, and right then we're going to take up an offering so that we can. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. I had to do
Man,
that.
so much wealth of knowledge, and we have a viewer that says, "Do you require the same degree skill set for your ministry leaders and teachers?"
Well, I can't answer the
Right.
question as it relates to
Right.
the pulpit. That's
Right.
out of my area.
Right.
But in my congregation, everybody is highly educated. Our pastor is an engineer.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
And so I don't know. And so in order to obtain employment at the church, you have to at least have a bachelor's degree in something. He happens to have a bachelor's degree, I believe, in engineering.
I think it's great. I think it's great because it sets the bar high. The church I attended in Little Rock, Arkansas, going to college, my pastor was St. DeWitt Hill, and he was a former educator. He owned mortuary and all that kind of stuff, and he always preached to them about education and ownership, properties. This was amazing. So this pastor was very, very progressive in having two churches in Arkansas at the same time, one in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and one in Little Rock. So everything you're saying,
that's smart.
Yes.
And so what he's doing, that's a good example, Mr. Dean, and obviously it was a good example to help you in terms of just being an inspiration. And that's pretty much all that I'm saying, is that there's so many young people that are talented. Part of being a mentor / artistic father is not to always agree. The parent don't always agree with everything that you do because they're concerned about your future. What the parent does is just that the parent validates who you are, validate what you can do, but they're looking at the future and they're helping you not perhaps to understand or to make some of the have some of the challenges they had.
Right.
And so the parent don't always agree.
Okay.
And so to me, that's how I look at it. When you really love somebody, you're kind of like in a situation of a strong mentor parent, artistic parent.
Mm-hmm.
You want the best for them down the line, not just for them to show you and take advantage. So to me, I think you take advantage of young people when you just concentrate on their talent and not their future. You take total advantage of them.
Right. Well, I think growing up in church, we get so spooky and deep, as I call it, that we think about the anointing, and you do need the anointing. But when the anointing is over, you have to go home and pay bills and all that kind of stuff. Then where do you stand?
And one of the things that
That's right.
I heard that really I think that our young musicians
Yes.
have to understand, and I think that you are an example of that, is you need a job even more so even outside of the church. And A lot of times the churches are spending a ton of money trying to keep their musician on, and the musician is pushing the church because that is their only source of income. But what it sounds like from you, you had multiple strings of
Hmm.
income, and the church was just one. So if the church did not pay or whatever, your life did not stop moving, and your family was not as
Oh,
affected.
absolutely. My entire life has been multiple. I have worked, when I started as a young man, I worked 7 jobs.
All right.
7.
I did.
Now, what's your
And
identity?
I've worked at,
Wait, hold on. What's your cultural identity? Because we would
He got to be
think you
Jamaican.
got to be Jamaican, some island.
Right.
Say it again.
but I'm 60 years old almost this year, July 24th, 1960, I was born.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I still work 3 jobs now. I'm always looking for opportunities, but my main job is Los Bananas College. To me, the church is, I don't necessarily need, I mean, I like the church and I
Right.
love my church,
Right.
but I'm not going to crumble if the church doesn't pay me. Because I don't look at the church as, I look at the church as the place where I worship. I give my talent, and I'm grateful for them allowing me to have served in this capacity so long. But I'm not looking for the church to bury me or to take care of me. Absolutely not. I
Growing.
think that's crazy. The church is main, and people forget this. I don't care how much a minister tells you you're wonderful. The church is focused around taking care of the pastor. The musician is just an afterthought.
Yes.
You get what's left. And people don't want to accept that because sometimes these pastors manipulate the emotion of these musicians to think, but what happens if the pastor gets fired?
Ooh.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Then you ain't got a job. You ain't, it's crazy.
No,
Yes.
no,
So to
no.
me, you should. And I want to add this. I always ask these young musicians, what are you doing all day? They'll tell me, oh, I'm playing with this recording artist. And what that got to do between 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 in the afternoon? I mean, what are you doing all day sitting around doing nothing? You don't have rehearsal till 7 o'clock.
Right.
You should be up doing some job, having a job, going to college, doing something. Just not sitting around being lazy, doing nothing.
Most of them don't want to
That's
work.
just, and I don't like it, but that's the truth.
Most of them don't want to work.
Well, hold on. You mean to tell me that the center of the joy is not around the musician? You mean that the church, the first financial obligation is to the pastor? Lord, you mean to tell me that my minister of music, that I set the atmosphere, is not why they collect that offering?
No. And I don't care how no one looks. Now, I am grateful to my church because we are very a faith-based organization and they're real professional. I have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
I won't play for no church without a contract.
Good.
Okay, you can't come to me and tell me how much you love me without an agreement. Because I know that people love God, but emotion and personality dictates that as much as they love God, unless there is an agreement, you don't have anything to stand on. Because you may come out one Sunday or may change ministers. In my church, I've been the most stable leader through the entire congregation for almost 40 years.
Wow.
We've had 6 or 7 or more than that people come in and out. I think we're on our 3rd pastor now. And he's doing a good job. But you know what? Something could happen where he decides he wants to stop.
Right.
And so I have to look at my stability with the organization, not just with the pastor.
Right.
I'm obedient in terms of being submissive to the leadership of whomever is the leader, but my employment and obligation is to the Prometheus Baptist Church Incorporated, not the pastor.
Right.
And I'm very firm on that. And I have an agreement, and I stick with that agreement. I do every single thing that's in that agreement and more. But it took years and years to create a culture of music excellence at the church. where the church now, our church really values the music program. But part of that is because I've constantly produced excellent, had excellent outcomes for the congregation. I've been able to create excellent outcomes when we had a choir of 350, when we had 13 people, when we had 200, when we had 50. It doesn't matter. I look at it like it's my responsibility to figure it out because this is the job. I approach it like a job. Yeah, it's a ministry. I'm not the ministry. I'm not. I provide services to a ministry.
Yes.
That's the people got it. I'm not the ministry. I'm the employee providing services to the ministry. Now, I'm a member of the church as well, but that's in another capacity where I serve on the finance committee. That's the ministry. Now, in that role, I'm supporting the ministry.
Right.
But as the minister of music, if I'm compensated, I'm an employee that is supervising and giving support to the ministry.
Well, let me ask you.
People have a hard time.
Yeah, let me ask you this question. You are known as a couple of things, Mr. Gospel and Mr. Grammy. How did those names come up for you, and which one do you like the best?
I think I like Mr. Gospel because, you know, everything I do is around gospel music. My education, even though I teach classical music and I play classical music, and I love it to death, my whole life has been focused around gospel music and higher education. It's God, higher education, music, family, friends, supporters, church. I would probably say Mr. Gospel. You know, awards are good and titles are good, but at the end of the day, what's more important is really your relationship with God and your own ability than your family.
Wow.
You know, it doesn't, I mean, awards are good, they come and go, you know, but at the end of the day, I can't go to Bank of America with a trophy.
Wow.
You can go and they'll take a picture of it. They'll take a picture of it and they say, can they get in with you?
Right.
Let me ask you this question. You said family. Do you have children? Tell us a little bit about the family, because I might ask the question if you got children.
Yeah, I got married at 21, and I have 3 daughters, and my daughters' names are, my oldest one is Carlana. She has a master's degree in education, and she created another business. She works as a very well-respected trainer. She's into training. The problem is she hasn't been able to help her overweight daddy yet. But that's part of my, you know, so it's not her, it's me.
Right.
And then my middle daughter is a well-known singer
Yes.
in the New York area. She's a Broadway singer, Silvester Henderson.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was on I think the Saturday Night Live recently with the young lady Lizzo.
Okay.
And so she's really very involved in that arena of artistry, and she traveled. She just did a big Russian tour, I think, where the embassy of Russia or somewhere over there, I can't say exactly, but they hired her. She has her website out. She's very, very talented. Miss Celeste, www.celeste.com. And then my youngest daughter is probably more the traditionalist in that she's getting married this year.
Okay.
And I think she likes, but I think she looked at her family and said, everybody is too stressed out and working too much. So she's more your traditional Martha Stewart young lady.
Okay.
She graduated from UC Berkeley. Her name is Miss Sharday Elizabeth Henderson. She graduated from UC Berkeley. My oldest one graduated from UC Davis, and also I forget the second place that she got a master's degree from because she did it online. And then my middle daughter attended community college at Los Angeles College. She didn't necessarily graduate. She took a different approach. And we argued about that, but I love her, and she's been very successful, and she's real business oriented. So that's what I like about her, you know, is that she's real business oriented, and she's still in the process of creating and branding who she is. So those are my three kids. They're all completely different. The oldest one is more formal and organized and resilient like I am. The middle one, I would say, is more adventurous and very classy, but she has, I think, a stubborn edge that's creative and good, and that she likes to do her own thing. And the youngest one is, I think, more cooperative and traditional. Those
Okay.
are my three children.
So I'm gonna ask you this question. I'm a fly on the wall. We just finished having Thanksgiving dinner. What does the after Thanksgiving situation look like in your household after Thanksgiving dinner?
You know what? Our Thanksgivings in the past have been a variety of activities. Sometimes it's just been my family, wife and I, and the kids, and then sometimes for Thanksgiving, we may have visited my wife's family, her mother. My wife had her mother. We sometimes would visit her father and her grandmother when they were living, and her mom is still living, but her father and her grandmother passed. And then sometimes on Thanksgiving, we would alternate in my large family, because my family is primarily from the South,
Mm-hmm.
and they all would come to my home and have the Thanksgiving dinner with me right here. So sometimes it would be that we would be cleaning up after, or sometimes sitting around watching TV or what have you. So a variety of things. But
Oh,
I Thanksgiving generally alternates. Sometimes when my family would come over, they get over it. We always have a 2 o'clock meal, and they usually hit to about 7 or 8. And
well,
then, but when I would go to my wife's family, then we're not home that day. We're traveling around to her different family people.
well, when does the when at some point I'm trying to get to when you sit down at the piano and the music starts. What holiday is that for you?
You know what? I did a lot of practicing as a kid coming up. I mean, 8 hours to 10 hours a day of learning to play classical music. I did that for like 20 years.
Wow.
Hmm.
I did a lot of training with my hands and my skills. And so, I have enormous keyboard skills. And usually, when I started teaching really firmly around my mid 20s, all of my playing was primarily around teaching.
Hmm.
And so it's throughout the day that I'll practice every once in a while. Like since we've been teaching online, I'm learning different stuff. So you know what? Now everybody's laughing because I've been creating a lot of YouTube videos,
Uh
and
huh.
I'm putting together a music series called Hymns for Corona. And this is going to be where I'm presenting myself as an urban um, classical music performer, where I'm
Wow.
going to take all these hymns and play them like I'm playing classical music. And I'm going to actually pitch this information to faith-based organizations that are more conservative: Presbyterian churches, Catholic churches, Lutheran churches, Episcopal
Mm-hmm.
churches, and go around and talk about the history of all these hymns. Like, for instance, Amazing Grace, that was written by John Newton, who was a slave owner. And that when he actually gave his life to the Lord, he realized that, wow, I was a bad person.
Yes.
And that's why it came out as like, I can't believe I did all of this stuff. And I was lost, but now I'm found.
Wow.
So I play a lot at home, at school. I have I have a nice office. We have many grand pianos. So it kind of varies, Dr. LT. I kind of go in and out.
Hmm.
But sometimes what I find is that if I'm quandering about a matter, now this has been my pattern. If I'm quandering about a matter or a social, let's say a job concern or family concern, what heals my heart all the time is playing the piano. Then
Hmm.
I'll wake up in the middle of the night
Hmm.
and I just go in the room and go to my grand piano and just start playing. And I
So
just play hymns and I love it.
So let me ask you this question. Besides, me in your horn section, if you were to put together a ensemble of singers and musicians, and they could be dead or alive, what would that be for you? You could.
It would be a keyboardist, a main
No,
keyboardist,
you got to call
an
they.
auxiliary.
No, you got to call their name. You got to put a name in it, not just you got to put a name with it. You be building it.
It would be I would have Jonathan DeCure,
Uh-huh.
Woo woo.
Pastor John.
Yes, my family.
I would have a brother by the name of Michael Blankenship.
Heard him.
I would probably
what music? You got to tell the
Michael
instrument.
Okay, John and Michael would be the main keyboardists.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. I would have the organist be L.J. Holloman, who was the musician who did a lot of work for the show Empire.
Wow.
He is an incredible organist. I would have probably David Jackson
Yes.
as an auxiliary musician.
Yes, sir.
I would have the bass player Calvin Brown. I would have
Wait a minute. From the Bay
drummer Omar.
Hold on. Are you talking about Calvin Brown from the Bay Area, Mingleton Temple, a Good Samaritan?
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
When I was up there, I played with him. That's like a brother-in-law.
Yeah, I would have Calvin.
Okay.
I would have Calvin. I would also have Ron Belcher. And I would have Calvin and Ron Belcher to switch up. Ron Belcher is not only an R&B musician, but he plays R&B, gospel, and jazz, and traditional jazz, upright bass. I would have the percussionist David Chong. I probably would have also another drummer to work along with Omar Maxwell, and that would be Clarence Lewis Jr. And the two horn players that I would have to alternate would be Angelo Luster or Rick Alexander. And then in the ensemble, I would have the organizer of the ensemble would be Richard Hayes. Mm-hmm. He's like my musical son today. I would also have a young lady by the name of Shauna Maxwell. Mm-hmm. These are all of my, and then I would also have Miss Georgia Davis. And I would also then in the ensemble, they would work as singers, sometimes as lead choir directors sometimes. And then in the ensemble, I would probably have the three of them along with Cadesta Prothor Harris, another young lady that I know named Carol Bussey, as well as Casey and Erica Pringle, their husband and wife duet. And they would probably make like a quartet of four people singing, and they'll be powerful. In fact, we actually, the four of us go with some configuration of that band, and we perform for a lot of political events, well-known political events. We perform for faith-based events, festivals, and rounds. So they performed for me, at all the big community events they call the LMC Gospel Ensemble. Now, and they're really professionals that I hire, to come in and represent. When I can't take the whole choir, mm-hmm. I would say 4 to 6 students.
Well,
and so that's kind of right away.
I just want to say before I pitch it over to Robert Earl Dean, I didn't hear my name in the horn section, but I'm gonna charge it to your head and not to your heart right now. But we're gonna move.
He got audition. Remember, you deal with auditions.
Go ahead.
That's what you know. What? Don't forget. You know what? Don't hold it against me because I'm gonna be 60 this year.
Right.
So I can say I don't look at myself as a total senior, but I'm a quasi senior.
In between.
I'm getting.
Yeah.
Sometimes seniors forget. So just attributed that. So we have to add Dr. LT to our horn section.
Yeah,
but he has audition. You have to be fair. He has audition.
Look. Favor ain't fair.
Well, he had my cousin John DeCure audition, so you got audition too.
He was younger back then. I'm old. I'm only 4 or 5 years behind him.
Right.
I'm gonna go in with an honorary musician. Robert Earl, go ahead.
So where did you go to college?
I went to San Francisco State University and completed my bachelor's degree and bachelor's of music degree. Mm-hmm. It was specialized in music, and the degree that I completed was way more focused and concentrated on keyboard skills and choral conducting than the Bachelor of Arts. When I was a student at San Francisco State back in 1977, we had what we would call a Bachelor of Arts degree. That's where you studied music, but from a general perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you wanted to be an educator or a well-known classical musician, you were admitted. It was a very intense program, and it was a Bachelor of Music degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I received my Bachelor's in Music and Keyboard Choral Diversified Education. That means you have to have extreme keyboard skills and the knowledge of how to play and run ensembles and teach and vocal pedagogy, understand all the Romance languages, Italian, French, German, Latin, all those things as well. How to phonate and articulate and teach all these things, as well as perform. And then I completed my Master's of Arts degree back in 1984 in choral conducting with an emphasis in urban choral music. I was the only person in the country to ever actually receive a master's degree focused around Black gospel music.
Wow.
So what they did is we took our traditional choral conducting degree. So I had to learn how to conduct Mozart and Beethoven and all those different great classical composers, Stravinsky and all those sort of composers, Bach. I had to be able to do that, but I had to be able to also add an educational component to gospel music. And so I create my master's thesis was entitled From Bach to Gospel. So I did a written analysis of African American gospel music and sort of compared it to the Bach chorales. Years ago, I took African American music, and I think we ended years ago with like God Is. That's when God Is. It just came out with Reverend James Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I talked about the simplicity of that melodic line as having the range of a 6 and these simple chords. And I showed how these are some of the same harmonies that are found in Bach chorales. And so it was a pretty intense project. And what I did was I brought the college to the church.
Yes.
I did not want to have all the music majors. I didn't want to have all the music majors be just my ensemble. I wanted to use the church choir. I wanted to use screaming voice Ella, flat Jonetta.
Right.
I wanted to say the guy who's a tenor who oversings and the bass who's tone deaf. And I had to figure out how to teach them. This is your typical choir.
Right. Yes, it is.
The soprano screeching, the alto's flat, the tenor singing too loud, and the bass a tone deaf.
That's right.
So I had 6 sessions. I taught them. I had to teach them a classical piece, an African American spiritual, and 2 gospel pieces, and I did a lecture. It was an hour presentation, and I had to teach them from a formal perspective. And I did this. I was 24 at the church called Church of the Good Shepherd Baptist. It was a small church, and I had about 18 people in the ensemble. And I had 6 sessions to teach them how to sing well. But the lucky thing was they loved that. That was the church that really nurtured my soul. They were the ones that really loved me and helped me. So they were willing. They wasn't great singers, but they were willing. So the college came out, and I actually took this ensemble of all of these singers and turned them into a very melodic ensemble within 6 rehearsals.
So let me ask
that was my project.
Wow.
So let me ask you this. Are you doing any more projects? Say, for instance, I'm a young musician, I'm a church, or I'm an organization. Do you go out and do conferences, or do you have an overall conference that people can come to experience the
So much
greatness
knowledge.
of Silvester Henderson and and your boy Dr. LT in the background with the horn section? Is there a time that you do that, or do you travel? How does that look?
I do a lot of I haven't been able to do as much as I like, but occasionally I do a lot of public speaking through an organization that I work for now called the Academic Center for California Community Colleges. This is a academic political appointment where I get an opportunity to, first of all, support my passion, which is education and music.
Yes.
do a lot of training on career technical education. We do a lot of training around just the value of STEAM, science, technology, engineering,
Mm-hmm.
art, and math.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's one area that I get a chance to work through my regular job. Through my production company, Mr. God, I have a production company in Tyler. I have two companies that I run. One is called Mr. Gospel Jazz Productions, and that's where churches and schools will hire me to come in, and not only will I take care of something musically, where I may come in and I may teach the choir an African American spiritual
Hmm.
by Jester Harrison or a gospel piece at the same time, but I may lecture to the students as well. Or they may hire me. Recently, I may have been hired. I was hired by a university out of the country. I mean, out of California, to go in and talk about the value of diversity and music and art.
Yes.
And I last year I was given an invitation. Well, not last year, 2 years ago. I was very excited about this one too, but I didn't. I decided not to do it because I had too many things going on. But it was a great honor. I was given an opportunity to. I was invited to present at Birmingham City University with Dr. Kehinde Andrews, who's one of the major scholars in London, and I believe it's South London and Greenwich University. And I was going over talking about art and music and religion, how all of them work together in
Yes.
terms of the African American experience. Because to me, I believe you can't separate art and creativity
No.
in education without supporting people of color. People of color, the way in which our lives changed was our belief in God and
Yes.
creativity.
Yes.
It was through the singing of the folk songs, the spiritual, that we were able to get free.
Yes.
So do those sort of things. The problem is, Dr. LT, I'm still trying to get the time where I can arrange your audition. And so if I can arrange your audition, you know what, I want to make that my major priority.
That's right.
Because I don't want to go any further without making sure that we do a doodle poll so we can have our audition.
That's right.
Woo, yeah.
That's right. Because you did it for my cousin John. You have to do it for LT too.
Well, see,
That's right.
first and foremost, being that he was at Berkeley when I was at Berkeley, and that he missed me back then, and he got my brother.
Or you missed him.
No, he missed me because I was on the campus, and there was only 5 of us there.
Right.
So
It's way diverse now.
no, but and he, when you said Calvin Brown, that is one of my dearest friends up in the Bay Area. His brother Craig took me around and really, literally introduced me to the music scene while I was up there going to school. Last but not least, I want to say that it has been a pleasure.
Oh my God.
Just kind of like I feel like we're just in the living room together, and
Yes.
we're kicking it and just talking about life and things of that nature. I want to know if a young person or a young musician or an organization wanted to get in contact with you just to go a little bit further and even maybe bring you out or to even travel to where you're at. How do they find you? How do they connect with you?
They can contact me at Los Medanos College. There's 3 ways. Well, 4 actually. They can go to Henderson at losmedanos.edu. They can also email me at mrgospel50@gmail.com. They could call me at 925-565-6107, or they could call me at this new business that I'm venturing entitled Professors for Life Incorporated, which is the training. I'm working as a training consultant to help young scholars become academics.
Mhm.
And that number is 925-400-7179. Those are the easiest ways. People can have my cell phone number. Everybody can have it. It doesn't bother me at all. 925-565-6107, 925-400-7179, or the emails that I mentioned earlier.
Wow.
Wow.
Robert O'Dean, another
Man,
great interview.
This
and
has been a pleasure, man. I mean, we could go on for another 2 hours because I'm enjoying this, and I went to HBCU, so talking and listening to you was like talking to my jazz professor who did the introduction of jazz, just taking all that information in and how he will put the education with the artistic music side of it, because you have to keep both of them, I think, equal.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I know that
That's right.
you have worked with a lot of great people, and I know besides on your bucket list of working with Dr. LT, who would be on your bucket list of who you have not worked with, but you would like to work with before you go on home when you're 105 years old?
You know what? A person that I thought was always very, very talented that I've always really liked. I don't have any relationship with him, but I've always liked his voice, and I thought he had a beautiful angelic voice, and I wanted to bring him to the college, and that's Smokey Norfolk.
Okay.
I went to college with him. He went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff with me, and he's a Kappa.
I have to contact you because I've always admired his voice,
He is
and
amazing.
he's just an amazing singer. I feel,
Hmm.
and I was informed. Someone told me that he was a pretty nice, humble fellow. So he's one, and then the last one is Stevie Wonder.
Okay. Okay. Now.
So I retire. I'm probably going to retire, and I would probably say anywhere. I'm trying to see if I can hold on to 67 if these old
67.
bones can keep
You
kicking.
can do it.
Mhm.
67.
Okay. So
You know,
Stevie Wonder.
about 7.
Okay. So he said Stevie Wonder and Smokey. So I
Yes.
think we might be able to help out both of those situations. And so I just want to let you know that when I do come to the Bay Area, we're gonna meet at Blondie's Pizza. Uh, and
Okay,
we're gonna hang out and get us a falafel, from the falafel hut, and then
okay,
we're gonna get down to business for my audition. I'm gonna give you an A, B, and C selection, and Robert O'Dean's gonna be on the background.
I'm,
okay.
and you know what,
I bet
Professor?
you so much.
Professor, you hit the nail on the head with both of those artists, and particularly Smokey. Smokey was a part of the Vesper choir, so he's trained classically and all that good stuff. I had a chance to watch him. He was the first person I met when I came there. My minister of music at the church I was going to took me to Smokey's house when he was getting ready to come as a freshman to my college, and he said, "I want you to meet this young man because you're coming from California and you're an accomplished singer. I want you to meet him." And this little short dude came out and shook my hand. Was very, very, very pleasant to me.
Why you have to talk about his height? That
Wow.
wasn't right. Professor, did you hear? It's bad. You don't talk about people's height, color, or weight.
Well, I didn't mean it in a particular way.
Well, Professor, we want to give you your last parting words and say
Yes,
thank you so much.
so much.
It's a great honor. Anytime that you want to send any music or want to appear on the Wake Up Morning Show or even on God Radio One, know that this is home.
Yes,
That we rocking with you until the
yes,
wheels fall off,
yes.
and we're just one call away. Any final words?
I want to just say I love both of you, and I
Yes.
want to really thank you for the opportunity to just share, my belief and my mission in terms of higher education, higher education, and African American music.
Yes.
Because I want to leave this with you to all the college students. Next to God and my birth family and my family I created, there are no people I love more than college students.
Right.
Amen. Amen.
I love college students. Thank you, and thank you once again
Yes.
for the opportunity to appear in your show. And I'm going to take you up with it because, we're always looking for media ways to help continue to promote college programs for students because that's been my life. When I die, I want the word students to be imprinted on my heart
Yes.
because
Amen.
it will stay there forever. So,
Amen. Well,
and thank you once again.
we're gonna play something that you sent us from your Corona files.
Yes.
Go introduce it, Robert Earl.
This, I believe, is the greatest thy faithfulness.
Yes.
Yes, you sent it to me the other day, and I sent it to him, and I said, "Let's play this for him on the show." So this is the Doctor, Professor, world renowned, international renowned, Professor Silvester
All of the
Henderson.
coronavirus victims, great is God's faithfulness.
Yes. If I was a blind man, I'd be able to feel it. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was.
God is faithful. Yes.
Professor Henderson, almost got tears in my
Man.
eyes. Beautiful rendition of Great is Thy
God is
Faithfulness.
faithful.
And it was all piano. And when I tell you
Mm-mm-mm.
that blesses the musicianship and the feeling
Yes.
of that piece was just amazing.
Cut.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
God bless you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. This has been a very emotional day
Yes.
here on GOD Radio 1. Professor, stay on the line. We're going to sign off right now on behalf of your boy, Dr. LT and Robert L. Dean. Robert L. Dean, again, another great interview. On
Yes.
tomorrow, we got more folks coming
We
in.
got Anita Wilson, the gospel artist, Stella Award winner. Anita Wilson on tomorrow and on Friday. Friday, everybody. Turn to your neighbor and say Friday.
Friday.
We have the Will Downing that will be joining us. So
All
we
right.
have 2 more wonderful days of interviews. I don't know how I'm going to last, LT.
Yeah.
If I'll just fall over
Yeah,
with my feet in the air, just pray for me.
we will. Professor, you had a final word?
Yes, just once again, thank you so much. As you were playing that song touched my heart because that was really inspired from my deepest heart. The Lord told me to get up in the middle of the night and play that.
Wow.
And I did. And I mean, it's just that I prayed and asked God. There was an emotion from it, and I cry when I hear it myself.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Well,
Because
yeah.
God really is faithful. Prayer is that I love humanity and love people, and I deeply love the two of you, kind gentlemen. Thank you once again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
What an honor.
You all be blessed. We will see you tomorrow. God save.